What in the world is happening with Barnes and Noble? Am I right? There is lots of drama going on with the bookseller right now. My name is Michael. You're listening to the Giddy Reader Radio Show, and today we're going to be looking at a number of new devices that have hit our review labs recently, most notably this third generation Sony digital paper. This is the 10.3 edition of DPT CP1. We have this in our hands, as well as the Onyx Boox Nook S, which is a 9.7-inch e-reader, which is different from their 10.3 Note that came out late last year / early this year in some markets. And we're going to look at some stats regarding the audiobook and traditional print ebook industry. So I hope you are going to get comfy because this is going to be a great show to listen to. I've been interested in smartwatches lately. It's something that I feel that I kind of want to get. So here's the deal. I traditionally wear analog watches, and I've had actually a few e-paper watches. The Fez Band 2 by Sony and the Seiko Spirit watch. Both of those watches ended up breaking over the years. I really like the Seiko one because it was solar powered, so you didn't actually have to swap out the batteries and things like that. I used it for that thing for 5 years. It was $1,000, but it was awesome, just so innovative in terms of the design, super cool build quality. A lot of the other e-paper stuff are just hella flimsy. The Fez watch, it's just you're wearing a strip of e-paper on you, and there's a little bit of glass protecting the other thing, but there's really nothing protecting the band and stuff like that. And I was just man, I'm gonna break this because I'm a bit of a klutz, so I tend to hit things and break things pretty easy. Seiko watch, best watch I ever have. I've had a few other watches that I kind of regularly sport. First gen Pebble and a Nikon or Nico or something like that. I don't know. It was a $600 or $700 watch, and I kind of really dug it. But I found that twice a year I've had to change the batteries on it because they just, traditional watches, I guess, just they need to swap the batteries. So I've been kind of I like my first gen Pebble, but Pebble's shutting off their servers and stuff soon as part of the Fitbit buyout. If you didn't hear about it, Fitbit bought Pebble, and Pebble was just having a hard time getting people who already bought a Pebble to upgrade to the latest and greatest. It's sort of like smartphones and e-readers. If you have a 3 or 4 year old Kindle, it's fine by today's standards. If you have a smartphone that's a few generations behind the times, you'll really notice it. But, with smartwatches and stuff like that, you could wait multiple years before you upgrade a different one. And that's what Pebble faced, so they had to get bought out. So my Pebble will stop working soon, and so I'm kind of looking for a new watch. There's a few that are hitting the market soon. One is an upcoming Galaxy watch that's using Android Wear, which is, I guess, now called Google Wear OS, which is, I guess, their new name. Not much is really kind of known about it at this point, but there was a picture that was just leaked, and it looks really good. In contrast to a new Huawei watch that's coming out soon that I've been kind of taking a look at. It's like a Fitbit tracker, Bluetooth fitness tracker. It's a watch, sort of a higher end Fitbit, and so there really isn't any price or anything like this. But this is the company is they have various things. They have the 5th gen TalkBand, which is out now, and this is the TalkBand B3 straight to B5. So it's hard to keep track of all these model numbers. So search continues. I was thinking of an Apple iWatch because I have an iPhone. I have an Apple TV and I have an iPad. Kind of makes sense to get something like Apple. Then kind of all my apps will automatically be installed once I kind of get the watch. But I was looking at the latest gen, and it was man, can I rationalize spending $700 or $800 on a watch that, I don't know. I'm just kind of tapped out at the notion of having to spend that much just on an Apple Watch, when Apple Watches, there's only been really kind of a few generations a lot of the bugs in just the industrial design and software and stuff haven't been totally ironed out yet. Might wait to see like what they announced like this year, but I'm kind of looking for maybe a really cool looking traditional watch that's running like Android Wear OS and something that's kind of like newer, so it, just the specs are like that good. There's been Android watches out way longer than like Apple's been doing iWatches, so I'm kind of on the fence about that. I'm just, literally I'm sick and tired of having to buy batteries for my traditional watch. I'd much rather just plug it into the USB port and have that go. There's been a few new e-readers that have been out on the market for just like a few days. Sony digital paper DPT-CP1 10.3 inch. It's running the same firmware as the other Sony digital paper. So there's really no home screen. It's just like your documents are there. There's like no web browser. There's no like really Wi-Fi or anything like that. There's some basic security functions where you can set like passcodes and things like that, but they're really kind of pushing you to use their app to send documents via the app to like another computer, to a tablet, to like a PC and stuff like that, because it does have Bluetooth. So it's meant to sort of do something like that, but I was kind of wishing that Sony would kind of like allow people to pre-install their own cloud server apps. So say like a company, 500 people working for me, I want to have everyone with digital papers and I want them to all talk to like the networks, BlackBerry enterprise server, and have like, all the documents sent to a central server. This way, like if I have lawyers, during a case, everyone has the exact same things. I note something like this, the person next to me gets the noted documents. I wish Sony would play nice with more Sony digital papers, either through near field communications, Bluetooth, or just like on the same Wi-Fi network at least. So despite the fact Sony has really good build quality, software super polished, they're the best in the business when it comes to digital note taking using their stylus. Stylus, total ergonomic, really cool design. Erasing stuff is like instant. Editing PDF documents or just jotting down notes freehand via just a blank background or a line background, or working with a split screen view with like a PDF on one side, blank note on the other side, or just like turning a single page PDF into a multiple page PDF in landscape mode. Orientations are super quick. Sony's constantly impressed me with their note taking functionality. Compared to Remarkable and what Onyx is doing, even with our own good e-reader, Sony's basically untouchable. It's not to say that the other brands fall short by any means, but they do make up for it in other ways. The Onyx Note S, had to get that out there. 9.7 inch e-reader. It doesn't have the long battery. It has 1 gig less of RAM. It has half the internal storage, and basically half the resolution is the 10.3 Note, and they do this in a 9.7 inch edition. They pull it off because they're still using 1 gig of RAM and a quad-core processor, so performance is a bit snappy. I find that their default note-taking experience compared to the Remarkable R e-reader and Sony's e-reader, it kind of falls off. If you've ever had a Remarkable, the Remarkable UI for taking notes is unparalleled. So they kind of lead it in the respect of when you're freehand drawing, for example, you can actually set up different layers in the drawing app. So you can actually do some shading for say a landscape, work on a second layer, and work on some trees, work on a third layer, work on some clouds. And then this way, if you're erasing something, you actually have to click on the layer of the something that you're erasing. So you won't inadvertently or start erasing everything just on that particular layer that you're working on. It's very Photoshop-esque, and I'm a huge Photoshop fan. And to be honest, the UI for the Remarkable in terms of pinching and zooming and all the features for being able to draw shapes and backgrounds, it's very Photoshop-esque, sort of that inverted like toolbar, and that's what it really reminded me of when I first reviewed it. In terms of the Note S, I feel that it's cheap enough to like purchase. It's, they skimped out on a lot of like the higher cost things that they did in like the Note, and they brought it down to $389, whereas like the Note 10.3 is $549. So it's like a $200 difference, and so you are trading off. And I think that if you're looking for something that is multifunctional, in a respect that it has an EPUB and Mobi reader, you can read comics on it. You could install Android apps. It's something that the Sony and the Remarkable can't. So it does have like that app store experience where you could download and install apps. Although Google Play didn't work for me when I did it. I heard that a lot of Android e-readers right now are struggling with Google Play. It's mainly due to new Google security policy that they're enforcing, which is certified by Android. And so a lot of the e-readers that were running Android that weren't authorized copies, which was pretty well all of them, especially the ones that were using like Google Play Framework, Google Play App Store. So Android devices on their own that don't have Google Play, no problem. Android e-readers that have Google Play, the only problem is that you can't access Google Play anymore, and you can't employ any existing hacks because for the most part, they don't have the default Android UI. Like when you go to the settings menu on an Android phone or tablet, it looks totally different than an e-reader because the e-readers only have a few features like Wi-Fi, wipe and restore the device, version number, check for updates, turn on Bluetooth, turn on speakers, things like that. Whereas an Android phone, it'll have like apps, device policy, about, and there's hacks that you can do to bypass the Google Play restrictions on a fully functional Android device that you can't do on an e-reader. So a lot of these companies are saying, it's something that we're kind of working on. Some people have reported that they have got a Note or a Max 2 recently, and they have been able to connect up to Google Play. So it looks like it's just hit or miss with some brands. Some devices are unable to connect. I know Onyx's new Note S, nobody can connect right now, and Onyx did tell me personally that this is a problem. They're looking to fix it. They might be looking at alternative app stores, in which case I said, hey, we have an e-ink app store that we've preloaded on all of our e-readers. Icarus preloaded on their e-readers. Number of Chinese companies have actually used it. Some partners of Boyu for white label ones have used our Android app store. It's basically like just a stripped down version of our normal Android app store. If you're not aware of it, we have an app store, apps.goodereader.com. You can download apps just from like the website, but we also have fully functional Android clients, so apps that you can install on your phone, tablet, or e-reader. So we have two different versions. One's the fully functional Android version, carousels, curated app selection, dynamic shading, animations, and things like that. It looks really awesome on a full color device that can handle it. But with e-ink, can't really handle all that, so we kind of stripped away all of like the superfluous animations, the image carousels, and we just have apps. So you click on apps, you click download. You don't even have to like register an account if you don't want to, which a lot of people in this day and age of privacy, that's what they want. So with our app store, it's pretty seamless in terms of just like download and install. So a lot of companies have been approaching us now, given this Google Play situation, and like, we want to preload your app store. What are your terms? And we're like, there's no terms. It's all free. Just install it, and this way, like, we get some added exposure, generate some extra like revenue through like in-app purchases and that sort of thing. So kind of sucks for e-readers at large, but good for us. So I don't know how I kind of feel about that. So yeah, two e-readers that we've looked at. I picked the Sony over the Onyx Boox Note S in terms of just the value that you're getting out of it. Barnes & Noble. It seems as though whenever I write about Barnes & Noble, it's never great news. It's never like for the first time in 6 years, Barnes and Noble stopped losing money in a quarter, and they generated $100 million. Or quarter by quarter, the Nook has been improving by double-digit percentages. I wish I could write stories like that. Wish I could be like Barnes and Noble CEO speaks at Book Expo America about the future of digital and how they're positioning their company to, compete against Amazon and Kobo and Walmart and all these other retailers. Here's our vision. Here's our plan. They don't do any about that. Barnes and Noble's gone through 4 CEOs in 5 years. They sequestered themselves in corporate headquarters in New York. They don't get out of the Barnes and Noble bubble. And why are all these CEOs leaving? Well, the Barnes and Noble co-founder, the founder of the company, he's been on the board of directors for a really long time. If you don't kind of agree with his vision, and he's a 77-year-old guy, he's pretty into the old school. If our visions don't align, here's your severance pay, good luck to you. And if you look at other bookstores all over the place, James Daunt, for example, I think he joined Waterstones in 2011. It was a bookseller that was like losing money for years and years and years, well before the Kindle came out. Stores fragmented, corporate, the people at the top of the food chains dictated what they can stock in their front window, what you can have front facing on your shelves. They really did a lot of stuff, and book sales decreased until the owner sold it to a Russian billionaire, hired James Daunt from Daunt Books, and he transformed the company in about 2 or 3, maybe 4 years to it's just generating profit, has no debt, it's doing tremendously well. And he's given many interviews, he's a totally accessible CEO of a bookstore chain that is not afraid to talk about Amazon and how they're going to counter the disruption, what's it look like in a post-Amazon world. He is like a quote machine, and he travels everywhere, just he's Waterstone's biggest fan. I don't think that Barnes and Noble, any of their CEOs, have been their biggest fan. They're not evangelists of the bookstore chain. They're quiet as a mouse. You rarely even hear them speak publicly, unless it's on really modulated quarterly results, so 4 times a year when they do their phone-in teleconference for posting their quarterly results, and the only people really talking to them are not media, not bloggers like myself. It's big capital firms, people who have 2 or 3% of share ownership of the company, and they talk about semantics that really kind of don't matter. And I kind of feel that Daunt, he's done amazing things, letting the bookstores have more control over what they stock to cater to local interests in your neighborhood. A bookstore in Mayfair is different from one in say Oxford Circus. You have different people, different atmosphere. Affluent neighborhood versus non-affluent neighborhood. What are the things that you stock? What are the commonality things that is accessible to everyone? And they hire people who are tremendously engaged with books. Barnes & Noble, on the other hand, is what Waterstones was before Daunt got involved. All books are mandated. Publishers pay Barnes & Noble X number of $1 million a year to only stock the books that they really want to promote in their new and notable select section on, when there's rows of bookshelves and there's certain books that face you, so you'll notice them first, especially the ones that aren't spine in. They're just facing you. Publishers and everything are paying money for that. It's not like the bookstores are hey, we thought you might like this book. It's more like the publishers hey, buy this friggin' book. So that's something a little interesting tidbit about how Barnes & Noble kind of handles all that. But what I found is This CEO was fired from Barnes and Noble for violating company policies. They did not disclose exactly what policies were violated. His termination was not due to any disagreement in the direction of the company, financial reporting policies or practices, or any potential fraud. Basically, it's likely probably due to sexual harassment. They wanted to keep it quiet. That was like why they involved like a law firm to kind of find out how they can handle it. He did not get any severance, so basically this is going to be a challenge for the next CEO who takes over the company, and they're going to have a lot of craziness to deal with. Would I love to write an article about how Barnes and Noble's CEO comes from a book selling background? They hire someone as the CEO of like Thalia, or of you know a big bookstore like Shakespeare and Co. in New York. They hire someone who loves books, and current CEO, he came from Staples. This Boyer before that came from Sears. I mean, they come from like very non the farthest thing away from books. He went from like being a CEO of like Sears, Boyer, who got fired from his job less than a year into it, selling refrigerators and handling inventory, to like running the largest book selling chain in the U.S. Uh, Demos, like he's from Staples, I mean, an office supply store, to running the biggest book selling store. I mean, I could go on like how all the CEOs of Barnes and Noble have come from very non-booky backgrounds, and they expect to turn around an industry that's been like slit at the throat, and by Amazon and e-commerce, like in general. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, they're the largest bookstore in America. Borders went bankrupt. It's not like Barnes and Noble is competing against anybody. They're competing against small mom and pop indie bookstores or staples of the market. The seminal bookstores that have been around for like 50 to 100 years in like, New York or San Francisco, various other markets. If you live in a city with them, the ones that I'm talking about. The ones that spell like must and mildew, but always have the greatest books at like awesome discounts. And, I used to always go to a used bookstore right across the street, incidentally, from the flagship store in Vancouver of Chapters Indigo. So, I would wait a lot of the times, or know when he gets shipments, because like the owner of the store would always like go and get like big boxes of books from like other stores, or he had his ear to the ground for like getting awesome books from like other companies, and I would know the days that he would get these books, so I would like go through the boxes of books that he just brought in that weren't tagged yet, that weren't on his shelves. It was like getting first dibs. It's like when you're young and crazy and like shopping at like Salvation Army stores to like get something like a Halloween costume or something like that. And a lot of those workers, their whole reason why they work there is because they get first dibs on all the stuff that comes in. So someone gives away an Armani suit that's too small for them anymore, but they would just want to donate it. It's a staff member that's getting that. It's not actually a lower income type person that's like getting it. But yeah, I mean, Barnes & Noble is not competing with anyone. Under like Demos's watch, stores sales were down 5.4% in the last year. Company lost $125 million in the last year. He's didn't exactly turn around the company. So, I mean, what could the next Barnes & Noble CEO do to improve the chances of them having any type of cohesive turnaround strategy to take it in a new direction? Even if the company were to find a new CEO with the right plan to fix things, chances are he won't stick around long enough to see it through. The next leader of Barnes & Noble will need to have a vast supply of job skills, or at least not stay out of trouble. I think that the next Barnes & Noble leader should publicly disclose what they intend to do to turn things around. The booksellers' corporate values should not be their best kept secret, and should basically assault everyone on a regular basis. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, just get out of the bubble. Talk to Daunt. Talk to other books, like big book selling chains. Talk to like Heather, who's the CEO of Chapters Indigo in Canada for like the last like 20 years. Talk to these people that I've been around for a long time, and Chapters Indigo. I touched on it a few times because the flagship store in Vancouver, I go to it a lot. I buy a lot of print books. I buy ebooks, but I buy more print than I do ebooks. And I mean, their stores are laid out beautifully. This company has had no debt in the last 10 years. Their stock, like double of what Barnes and Noble's at. They close down stores, sure, and then if they close down a superstore, immediately they'll open up like a smaller store, like a more boutique bookstore, just because like obviously this market has changed since the bookstore has been there. This big store, the rent versus the revenue coming in is not making sense. We'll close down that store, and then one block away we'll open up like a store that's like 3/4 the size, and we have like still awesome books, and it's laid out really well. Leadership at Indigo has been like super strong. Every year it's like revenue increases. At some point, like in the next 12 months, they're going to be opening up their first American store in New Jersey. They only plan to do one because they're kind of looking at it as like a learning experience, book selling into totally different markets, book selling in the US, something that they don't have any experience with, dealing with like dealing in Canada. And even though that you're dealing with publishers in Canada, it's like their official Canadian thing. So like Penguin Random House Canada, Hachette Canada. So if any bookstore or anything like that is dealing with books in Canada, they're not dealing with books sent to Canada from the States, although sometimes they are, but they're dealing primarily with their Canadian distributors, Canadian management of these companies who are giving them books. So it's going to be maybe a bit of a challenge dealing with that in the U.S. market, but they're starting small. They're starting with like a non-crazy bookstore. They're not looking to compete against Amazon or Barnes & Noble or even like to a lesser degree Books A Million with their few locations. It'll be interesting, and I'm kind of excited about it. Speaking of print sales increased by 2% in the first half of 2008. This is good news for bookstores basically everywhere in North America. So one of the big driving factors has been all things Trump. Michael Wolff's Fire and Fury, James Comey's A Higher Loyalty. Both of those books together sold like about 1.5 million copies. Like Fire and Fury sold 1.1 million copies like in the first half of 2018, and Higher Loyalty sold 577,000 copies. That's a lot of copies, and so everything related to Trump is doing well. So up until April, every New York Times bestseller had related to the Trump presidency in some way. And it's not that he just serves as material as chief salesman. He moves unit, or at least increases awareness of the book with his tweets. This week, though, just 1/3 of the New York Times bestseller list of hardcover fiction had something to do with Trump related. So we're kind of getting a beach season, fall season. This is like where like people start releasing the big breakout novels. But continuing, there is some books that kind of came a little bit out of nowhere that are doing well. I mean, The President is Missing by Bill Clinton and James Patterson sold like 400,000 copies in the first 6 months of 2018. Stephen King's The Outsider, which a lot of people are reading right now, was the second most popular new adult fiction title in the last 6 months. Sold about 250,000 copies. And, the Handmaid's Tale sold 325,000 copies. I mean, that book is like old and it's still selling like hotcakes, primarily due to the television show. So I mean, there are some other trends in book selling that I'll get into just quickly. Paperback sales basically flat. Mass market paperback sales bottoming out. It's like just a decrease like 3%. But what's interesting is how digital audiobooks has been disrupting physical audiobooks. Physical audiobook sales they fell like 9%. Okay, so they lump it into CDs. So basically, digital audiobooks and CDs fell 28%. So these are bookstores that sell these, and yeah, not too good in terms of legacy media. But then again, who's buying CDs anymore when everything is digital? It's you know. It comes back to Barnes and Noble again, where it's like they sell Maroon 5 records at their bookstores. They sell Funko like dolls or whatever. They sell toys. They sell stationaries. Sell pens. Like less than half the store is actually devoted to selling books. It's like all this shit that's like, are they selling VHS tapes? They're not that out of touch, but they are selling like CDs, cassettes, records, and all this stuff that's like, it blows my mind how to like out of touch with the modern world they actually are. And it's like, are they looking at other bookstore chains to see like what they're getting right that they're doing wrong? It's probably not. It's like, we're Barnes and Noble, we're the biggest bookstore in the US, we'll run our business as we see fit. It's just like everyone's abandoning ship. All the stock people who own big shares of the company, they're all abandoning ship. It's like it's so funny. But yeah, I mean, I've been ranting and raving about Barnes and Noble, and it's just like I wish I could write great stuff about them. I do. It's just like everything that comes out of them through official PR channels and financial results and what other how they're doing versus the competition. It's like it's always bad, man. It's bad. Prime Day is coming up soon, July 16th. So, I hope when you open up your wallet, moths aren't flying out because like it's been so long that you've actually put money in there. Like dust flies out and stuff like that. So it start to like save your moolah because they're gonna have like tons of sales this year. Whole Foods sales are gonna be available in the US. There's gonna be a lot of different Alexa deals. They kind of toyed with this last year, but it's gonna be more. They're gonna be more ingrained this year, where there's certain deals on certain products that'll only be available through like your voice assistant. Your voice assistant will like tell you everything about it once Prime Day starts. What am I gonna get for Prime Day? Oh, I don't know. I'm not gonna buy any Amazon branded stuff. I mean, I have everything that they just send me. That, I have like. I think like one of our people looked at a review video. It's like, man, you've had like 32 different Kindles. It's like, yeah, man, we've reviewed every single Kindle model that's ever come out. And we have half of them just sitting at our review labs. One of these days we'll do a video about like all the different generations of the Kindle and like talk to you about what we said at the time versus like how they perform now. I think that would be kind of cool. I don't know. I'm have everything I kind of need. I don't really need anything, but when has really needing anything stopped you from actually buying something? I don't know. I'm kind of addicted to shopping sometimes. Retail therapy and all that jazz. So this has been the Goody Reader Radio Show. We've talked to you a lot about a lot of different things, so hopefully you've enjoyed this edition. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, this audio production is available on our website. On the front page, in the next week or two, it'll be available through our navigation bar. If you just click media and then radio show, you'll get this. We're available also on Google Play audiobooks. We're on Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Goody Reader Radio Show is everywhere. So hopefully you've enjoyed. My name is Michael, and everybody take care.